Hello everyone, my name is Kismat Govani and I am the host for today's Women's Day special event. Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate women's achievements and the problems they have faced. Life Force Homeopathy celebrates women and the roles they play. As we all know, coronavirus has stopped everyone. The women have been the pillars and anchors for every family. Oftentimes they forget to think about themselves, which has led to the mental disorders, and along with that it has brought a steep rise in the chronic diseases. So today's session is to bring enlightenment on all of these issues that women are facing in their daily life. So allow me to introduce you to our COVID warriors from Life Force Homeopathy, a panel of expert doctors, associate doctors to Dr. Rajesh Shah, the women who have played the role of mother, daughter, sister, and also professionally as doctors. Let me introduce you to the panel of expert doctors, associate doctors to Dr. Rajesh Shah, Dr. Samreen, Dr. Prajakta, Dr. Amrita, and Dr. Neetu. I would like to request Dr. Amrita to give us a brief information about what is mental health, why its awareness is needed, and why women specifically have to be educated about it. Dr. Amrita, please.
Yes, Kismet. So your question is in three parts. Let me first tell you if there anything exists called mental health. The answer is yes. Over all these years, we have only focused upon the physical health, how we look, how fat we are, how thin we are, our weights, our complexion, and the physical ailments that we have suffered from. So all of these years, it's just the physical health that we know, but we have conveniently ignored our mental health. So what mental health is? How we feel, how happy we are, how content we are, our abilities to learn, to cope up with stress, and to manage positive as well as negative emotions like anxiety, frustration, anger. We all at some point of time go through these emotions, go through these phases, but it is absolutely normal to suffer from it and come out of it. When the ability to cope up with this is perfectly fine, it is good mental health. But the moment your sense of well-being starts getting affected, the difficulty in coping up with these emotions start happening, that is when the mental health gets deranged. To your second question, why is it important? Well, we'll look into the further questions that we have, wherein mental health, when it gets affected, it leads to a lot of physical ailments. So it is very important to address mental health. And why women specifically? Well, there's no demarcation as such. Men equally go through some sort of mental health issues and they cope up with it differently. But women have, there are three reasons why women have different issues. The biological component, the hormones that they have, estrogen and progesterone, which affect their mental health. The social aspect of it, wherein right from a girl child being born, the acceptance, the upbringing of a girl child, you should sit in a proper way, talk in a proper way. When she attains her menses, it is a hush-hush to talk about menses. When she gets married, she goes to a new environment, giving up her previous known environment. So there are a lot of changes that a woman goes through, socially and culturally. And the third aspect is psychologically, how a woman is made up of is quite different from how a man is made up of. So she expresses differently, she internalizes her emotions as a woman that she is. So this not just adds on to her strength, but also at times as a weakness. So hence, women's mental health is very important to be addressed, I feel.
As described by Dr. Amrita, mental health awareness is needed amongst all of us. Dr. Samreen, I would like to request, please guide us as in how to understand what are the emotional sufferings that women face specifically.
Sure, Kisma. I would like to address this to our lovely audience. Is women definitely daily, on day-to-day basis, has a lot of emotional turmoil that they definitely go through. But what will be the pointers for which they need attention to, which it happens on a consistent basis? For example, a young girl or maybe a female who has been quite bubbly, quite cheerful in her nature, gradually when she starts going into a shell, like not able to disclose her emotions to her family, friends, or to people she was close to, this could be one of the indication. Second would be some kind of isolation, like she tries isolating herself from not going into some social platforms or social gatherings. That could be one of the indications. Third would be any unconditional change in her behavior, throwing outburst of anger where it is not required, getting anxious for no reason. That could be another indicator. Fourth most would be the personality changes, which at times, over a period of time, start becoming much more severe form that require an emotional, support for that way. Another factor would be like, if there's poor self-care. She is the girl who was a female who was taking good care about herself. Now she is not able to do so. It goes into more of self-care. Again, going into substance abuse, usage of like tobacco, alcohol, that kind of addiction that could lead up to that. Another in middle age and later age group of females that we have seen that there could be early cases of dementia. Consistent emotional suffering, a housewife, a housemaker, a homemaker who was not able to express her out all these years slowly goes into early form of dementia where she starts becoming more forgetful on day-to-day activities and which can become more grave. So paying attention to dementia comes very closely even with the emotional suffering. So I see like for the family members or in the friend circle, if we are noting out for our loved ones, these changes are coming up, yes, then that needs some attention over here.
Okay, doctor. So we are having a set of questions that we have gathered from a survey from social media. I would like Dr. Neetu to start with our first question, which says, can emotions like anxiety, worry and stress lead to health issues?
Thanks, Kismat. Yeah, of course, all the psychological ailments, all the psychological diseases, anxiety, stress can result into psychosomatic disorders like IBS, GERD, gastritis, etc. etc. What happens in stress or depression, their nervous system start acting too much, which ultimately leads to the overstimulation of your digestive system, which ultimately leads to the acid secretion. There is an increased acid secretion and ultimately you feel heartburn, bloated feeling, acidity. These are all the symptoms that you face because of your stress related symptoms. Second is when the patient is stressed or depressed, we have seen that they have an erratic meal pattern. They tend to overeat. They go for junk food. This gives a sense of comfort to them. So this ultimately leads to another gastric complaints. Third, we have seen that stress is sometimes a byproduct of some existing diseases like PCOD. PCOD is very common in nowadays. I think the ratio is proportionately very high in India, daughters or girls suffering from PCOD. So what happens in PCOD is there's a hormonal imbalance. The estrogen gets low. So estrogen is very important for the emotional quotient of women. So when it gets deteriorated, the emotional health of the women gets suffered. So ultimately the byproduct is people suffer from stress, anxiety, depression, and yeah, this is how it goes with psychological ailments.
Yes, true. As mentioned by Dr. Neetu, stress affects women's life drastically. So I would like Dr. Prajakta to give us certain insight as in what is the role that stress plays in PCOD and does it affect our menstrual cycle and also does it somehow have some effect on female fertility?
Yes, Kismat, I would say that this is a very good question, extremely relatable to today's topic. I would like to answer this question in three parts. First is, as rightly said by my colleague Dr. Neetu, that PCOD is a disorder where you have hormonal imbalance, where the estrogen level goes down. And why it happens? It happens because of enlarged ovaries, which are enlarged because of multiple fluid-filled cysts or vesicle or small spaces in the ovary. So what happens because of this enlarged ovaries, there is hormonal imbalance or estrogen deficiency, as we know, and as a result of which women suffer from a lot of complaints, like they have acne, they tend to gain weight, there is overgrowth of all the facial hair known as hirsutism, there is excessive pigmentation of the skin on the neck and rest parts of the body known as acanthosis, and most importantly, there are menstrual irregularities. Now comes the part as to why is your psyche connected to your menses, as to why. I mean, what happens when you are stressed, when you are too much overburdened, why does your menses be affected? So one part is yes, PCOD is affected by stress and your lifestyle changes. And why is this happening? Because of the psychoneuroendocrine axis, also now known as the psychoneuroendocrine and immunological axis. This is a branch of science where research is going on, where it states that your behavior, your emotion tends to affect your central nervous system, which in turn affects your endocrine system. Endocrine as in the system that maintains the hormones in your body. Okay, so that is the reason why your stress, your overeating, your emotional quotient and all plays an important role in diseases like PCOD, which in turn causes your menses to either be delayed, scanty. And again, menstruation is a major trigger. Okay, that you can see whenever a female is stressed, especially with all the responsibilities that she needs to play. Now the second part that you asked is whether this also affects fertility. So yes, 20% of the infertility cases in women are because of PCOD. PCOD is rising at a rate of 5 to 6%, and most importantly, if we want to curb it down, we need to do lifestyle changes and lower down the stress that females experience. And with fertility or with fertility issues or with infertility comes up a lot of psychological impact on the couple, but more so on females, especially in a society like India, where a female has a very low self-esteem that she's not able to reproduce. There are a lot of social pressures, there's a lot of impact on her mental health. So managing all of this, so it's like a cycle. Excessive stress causes delayed menses, this causes PCOS, then that leads to infertility. So somewhere we need to make lifestyle changes, dietary changes, take help with the help of homeopathic medicines so that we are able to manage it in a much better way.
Yeah, right, doctors. I think the young girls need to be very careful about the lifestyle choices they are making.
Absolutely.
Dr. Samrin, can you give us certain insight about the lifestyle related challenges that the young generation is facing these days?
Sure, Kismet. So, of course, we are seeing there has been very pattern what has been observed over these past few years, in the past decade, where there have been exposed to a lot of technology, there has been exposed to crazy, hectic schedules going on, be it late night studies, being, of course, with the COVID, the things have now changed in the past 1 year, but social life being heavy in like late night parties and all that going on. This kind of category of young females, they are both extremes, I would say. They are girls who are absolutely going into eating disorders, wherein they medically what we call it as anorexia nervosa, wherein they definitely have scared of eating. Like they'll be literally eating with a portion size and measure and then eat. So that's an extreme form. The another variant is like bulimia, wherein it's the other extreme where they definitely go indulge in themselves, but a sudden guilt comes in like, okay, I have 2-3 vada paos, like something which I need not keep it in my body, and they go and induce vomiting. So that comes into bulimia, another extreme category. The third most common factor what we see these days is the new fad that is coming up is like binge eating, which is now leading to increased kind of obesity. I would not say that this is applicable only to young females, but even to elderly women, especially at workplace. Okay, they are crazy schedules. There are lots of back-to-back meetings happening out there. No time to have proper food. So just grab on like some chips packet or have something with junk coming up. So this is like binge eating, which ultimately with a sedentary lifestyle accumulates and leads to obesity-like issues. The fourth, I would categorize like something which we call it as, this is a new fad that is coming up, is orthorexia, wherein this is the other form where the female has more and more obsession of having only and only healthy food. Like totally absolute no fried food, going for like those puffs, the jaw puffs, you get it across those wheat puffs, absolutely no salt but yet tasty. So this is another extreme, but the message to these young girls is like, try to eat in a balanced and healthy food. Okay, no need to go to such extremes of either under-eating or overeating and then punishing yourself. So that is something which you need to take it so that you are not additionally putting a stress on yourself. Additionally to this, it can further lead to symptoms of like anxiety, then depression, and then everything is interconnected. So eat healthy food, work out, exercise at the same time, be physically active rather than being there on the electronic gadgets all the time. So these all changes are definitely required with this young generation, for sure.
Truly, doctor, all these conditions lead to obesity, depression and anxiety. I would like to ask Dr. Amrita, how normal is it to be anxious and what exactly anxiety is? And we have received this question frequently asked by our audience. When is it okay to visit our doctor and to contact them?
That's a really good question, Kismet. In normal day-to-day life, we use the word anxiety really common. It is used very casually, But let me tell you that anxiety is a normal human expression. I call it as a positive expression because this anxiety helps you in preparing for a threat. I'll give you a little example here wherein suppose you are riding a car, you're driving a car with music on, you're all relaxed and suddenly there's a dog crossing the road. What happens is you immediately get alert, your limbs are activated, there's rush of blood happening, there's increased respiration, palpitations, and suddenly that leg by default goes out to the brake. What just happened? This was your reaction to a situation. We call this in scientific language as a fight or flight situation. So, when a threat is perceived by the mind, there is a rush of adrenaline happening, which in turn prepares your body to either fight the situation or flight or go away from it to save yourself. This happens in very common instances like the first stage show or a first date wherein you have those butterflies in the tummy, or you are happening to meet someone for the first time, or exams, palpitations, increased sweat in palms before exams. These are all normal anxious expressions, and you need not do anything to get out of it. You naturally come out of that anxiety episode once the situation is faced. This helps you in giving your best shot. That's why I call anxiety as a positive response. But the moment you start finding it difficult to cope up with this situation, or the response is out of proportion to the situation, there is increased frequency of palpitations without any causative factor, there is increased heart rate, there is increased worries, thought processes, negative thoughts. That is the time you need to worry. That is the time you need to contact a doctor. This is the early stage of anxiety. So when this is treated, it is better seen, the better results are seen. If untreated, there is prolonged expression. Either it might lead to a psychosomatic disorder in the longer run, or the severity of anxiety can go up. So for parents, if you see your child becoming restless out of for no reason, or your teenager who is awake at night doing nothing, or an adult who is unable to cope up at work suddenly for no reason, or children who are unable to focus in studies for no reason, these are the times you need to contact a doctor.
As described by Dr. Amrita, I have learned that anxiety is silent and we don't notice a change on the outside, but internally it affects the body and its functionality. So the next question that we have from our audience is, can anxiety or depression be genetic? Dr. Neetu, can you please guide us about the lifestyle changes, and would you please like to address this question?
Of course, Kismet. It's been seen that if the parents are having any psychological ailment like anxiety, stress, or any depression, they carry this trait to their sibling, their offspring also. So it's been seen that if the anxiety is present in between the age group of 0 to 20, it tends to be more of genetic rather than acquired. But if it is seen in the age group greater than 20 years, there can be some external factors also like job pressure, poor work environment, poor home environment. That can be the reasons for that. In that case, that cannot be genetic. So, for the lifestyle changes that I would suggest is, first and the foremost and the very important change, and what you need to do is talk. Just talk. Talk to anybody. Talk to your spouse, talk to your colleague, talk to your sibling, talk to your mate, talk to your boss, talk to your anybody in your family. If you don't find anyone, just go for some counseling, seek some medical advice, see some psychiatrist, see some psycho-counselor. They will help you, they will guide you. Just don't confide these emotions to yourself. Vent it out. And I would also suggest to those who come across such patients having anxiety or stress, please listen to them. This is the utmost thing that they need it right now. Because this is the time that you can prove that you are their friend, their relative, your parent. So talking is very important part in handling anxiety and stress. Second is exercise. Take 40 minutes in a day, exercise. Let it be anything, gymming, outdoor activity, or any game, or any gardening, anything. Just spend some time with nature.
So, doctor, do people having such conditions face certain mood swings and how does it affect? We have a question from our audience that how does it indicate something? How persistent low mood and lethargy are an indicator of thyroid disorders? I would like Dr. Prajakta to give a certain perception about it.
Thank you, Kismet. Well, yes, definitely researchers have proved a definite relation between low mood, persistent lethargy and thyroid disorders. Especially we see female suffering from hypothyroidism, or what we know as underactive thyroidism, have persistent low mood, lethargy, sluggishness, and this not only affects on the mental level but also on the physical level in terms of lower metabolic rate, extreme lethargy and no interest in doing anything, no mood in doing anything, excessive weakness, body aches, increase in body weight, low sweating. So all this definitely does affect women, especially in cases of thyroid disorders.
Dr. Samreen, can you please bring in some awareness about this next question as from our audience that they need guidance about the role of homeopathy in management of various mood disorders?
Sure, Kismet. So, when we decide upon the various mood disorders, there are different segments of life in the female that come across. So, accordingly, the management in terms with homeopathy as well as in terms of counseling plays a major role. For example, when we start right from the puberty age group, okay, young girls these days start their puberty, they hit the puberty by the age group of 11 to 14 years, wherein a different set of mood disorders that starts coming up, adjustment to the different various physical changes, secondary sexual characters being developed in the body, at the same time emotionally different changes that happens in the mind. That is one of the segment. The another section which in the next lifestyle that moves upon is after puberty comes in the reproductive age group, wherein there is pregnancy that comes along with pregnancy, during the hormonal changes that happens during pregnancy, postnatal after the delivery happens. So this postnatal depression, which is a very very common thing but not much spoken about, also called as baby blues, which happens due to drastic hormonal changes that come across. The another segment of life that comes into female is somewhere around after 45 to 55 age group, wherein it includes about the perimenopausal to menopausal syndrome. Depending upon which segment a female falls into, the management differs, the approach with homeopathy differs. Definitely with homeopathic science we have a lot of beautiful remedies which we not only target only on managing of the mood swings and maintaining and regularizing the hormonal issues, but at the same time what could have triggered the problem? Was there a specific event could have triggered the issues, or was there a maintaining factor at workplace or at home which could have definitely identified? So based on the causative factor, what has triggered the issues and what has been the maintaining factor, at the same time based on their constitution, with the homeopathic medicines definitely have answers. But here I would suggest more than along only with going with the homeopathy, if there is a requirement of going for some counseling sessions, seeking help from a psychologist, yes, in collaboration with the right homeopathic medicines and with the counselor, the results can definitely be achieved and it can be helped on time, for sure.
So we have seen the problems that young girls are facing, young women and also the women going through the phase of pregnancy. I feel we should discuss about the women going through the menopause period too. So we have a next question from our audience which says, can a woman get migraine during pre-menopause period? Dr. Prajakta, would you like to address this question?
Thank you so much for the lovely question, Kismet. I would really like to address this question with the fact that migraines, when we speak of migraines is a group of headaches, recurrent headaches, or it's a group of complex disorders which consists of recurrent headaches along with visual and sensory disturbances, which is known as aura. So people can have, women specifically are more prone to get migraines, and women can have migraines either with or without aura. Now when we speak of menopause, I would like to also speak of perimenopause. So what is perimenopause? It is an age group of 2 to 3 years before the menses stop. After that is followed by 1 year of complete amenorrhea or no menses, and then the menopause appears. So you see, this is a period where there is decrease in the ovarian activity, as a result of which there is deficiency of the estrogen hormone, which acts as a trigger for recurrent migraine or recurrent headaches which occurs in migraine. This phase of perimenopause, it is 2 to 3 years before the menses stop, then 1 year for the menses to stop completely, and then the menopause sets in, is a very difficult phase in a woman's life. And if you see, migraines also tend to have their peaks in the mid 40s or late 40s and the 50s. So we can see a definite correlation between migraine and perimenopausal age group because it is decrease in the hormones which triggers recurrent headaches. Also, it's a phase where a woman has to adjust both mentally, physically, sexually, psychologically to all the changes that she goes through. So this, I guess, definitely answers your question. And definitely in India, almost you would not imagine more than 60 million people or 60 million women, I must say, lie in the age group of more than 55 years. So see, women suffering from perimenopausal syndrome or premenopausal syndrome are large in number, but their issues are not addressed. So yes, migraines do occur in perimenopausal age group, and that is because of the hormonal imbalance that occurs.
As Dr. Prajakta has given a brief information about menopause, so we have a next question which is as what is anemia? Dr. Neetu, would you like to give us some guidance about what is anemia exactly and what are its types?
Okay. Sure, Kismet. Anemia is when your hemoglobin is less than 11.5. It's very common in India because we have been trained like this since beginning in Indian tradition that a woman has to first feed their family. First you need to feed your children, first you need to feed your spouse, parents, in-laws, and then you're supposed to have your meals. So ultimately what happens is the nutrition of the woman is compromised. So there's a nutritional deficiency seen in the woman because of this tradition being followed. Sometimes second reason can be because of the blood loss also. There is increased menorrhagia that can be because of many reasons like post-pregnancy, some ailments like fibroid or cancer or PCOD or any ailments related to any uterine diseases. So that can also trigger anemia. So, and sometimes there is another diseases like aplastic anemia, thalassemia minor, sickle cell anemia. These are very common in nowadays. So how to manage anemia? So it depends upon the severity. If it's a mild anemia, say your hemoglobin is between 10 to 11.5, then you can manage it with some nutrition factors that include more of the jaggery, dates, beetroot, carrots in your daily diet, and it can be managed with it. If it is a moderate anemia, say your hemoglobin is between 8 to 10, then you need to consult a physician and start some iron supplements for the same under his or her guidance. And if it is severe anemia, your hemoglobin is less than 8, first you need to rule out the cause why you are having this thing and treat that disease, and ultimately anemia will be treated with it. So I think I have addressed all the questions.
Doctors, I have heard that homeopathy heals from the root cause, and homeopathy has a positive role in overcoming or healing the mental disorders. So while we go to a homeopath for a consultation, the homeopath asks certain questions. So what are the certain factors that patient needs to tell the doctor, share it with the doctor? Can you please share some insight on that?
Alright, Kismet, so finally we are talking about homeopathic aspect here. Like Dr. Neetu said previously, talk about your complaints. So who would be the best person to talk to? That would be a homeopath. We often get patients who have chronic complaints and we have a detailed homeopathic interrogation happening. So let me tell you that homeopathy is the only science that incorporates mind as well as body to select its medicines. So a thorough detailed case history is absolutely required when we choose the right remedy. So a homeopath would inquire about your appetite, thirst, likes, dislikes, bowels, urine, sleep, your past history, your mental history, and then invariably a doctor who is treating you for your chronic complaint asks you any major stress you have, or tell me about your temperament, your nature, describe yourself. So that is the opportunity that the patients have to take to open up about your inner fears, inner frustrations, anger, stress issues, some incidents that has happened in the childhood which you might not have given importance to, but that could be important in selecting a remedy for your disease management. So that is the time you tell honestly. So like they say, never lie to a lawyer, never lie to a policeman, and never lie to a homeopath. So tell honestly what you've been suffering from. The doctor's responsibility is to connect the dots. We several have patients wherein a lady complaining of ulcerative colitis symptoms, diarrhea, blood in stools, mucus in stools. On detailed evaluation, it happened to be that she underwent a lot of stress due to strained relationships between her in-laws. Or we had a patient who developed suddenly a patch of vitiligo on her neck after she was not given her due designation at work. Or a child who experienced or faced discord or fights between the parents and ended up in IBS. So these are cause and effect phenomenon that we try to jot down in the homeopathic case history, and invariably the patients have to narrate to this for the correct selection of remedy, I feel.
As we all know, COVID has brought a rise in the number of and the intensity of stress and depression. So I would like to ask Dr. Samreen, according to you, what has been the impact of emotional damage in females due to this COVID-19 situation?
Yeah. This is a good platform where would I just like to say that not only in working females or people who are females as a homemaker, that this has created a more impact emotionally. Females as it is has been managing both, whether it's a working female or it's a homemaker, managing all the things, right from sending the children to school, managing their household activities, managing out their professional life. In addition to that, when COVID hit, it has impacted not only the Indian females but all over globally. We have seen a major impact that has come up with a major change which has never ever seen the last entire century, wherein the kids are working, right? They are doing online schooling happening out there, work from home culture being developed all across the globe, wherein the spouses or even the male quotient have been now working from home. So this, and on top of that, this is in addition to what the female had already been doing. So this all in all has not only impacted her on the emotional aspect but also taking a toll on her physical aspect as well. Working, it's all the more being, it's a WD that's happening out, right? Now, according to this, we have seen in our practice also, it's been at least 30 to 40% increase in cases within females, especially who are affected with anxiety, with depression, unknown fears. There has been insecurity factor coming up because there has been many people who have lost their jobs. There has been a socio-economic impact that has happened. People where the COVID families were affected, they were put up into isolation in the initial phase when this pandemic hit across. So there was a complete isolation, getting into the social taboo kind of thing that had happened. So this has definitely impacted most of the females. We are still trying to come up out of all this. This is going to take some while, but I'm sure that with a lot of awareness happening across, so we should be definitely helping these females in a much more better way.
So the next question that we have is, so this is round that we have received number of times. Why do women have an increasing rate of depression than in males? As of now, we know it is a difficult phase for all of us, be it men or women. So how would you like to answer this question, Dr. Prajakta?
Definitely, there have been research articles which suggest that increasing rate of depression correlates with hormonal changes in women. And women tend to go through these changes a lot. May it be puberty, before the menses start, during your fertile period, that is your reproductive period from your 20s to your late 30s, and then the perimenopause and the menopause. So there are these phases through which hormonal changes occur, as a result of which it is known to trigger your moods, it is known to trigger the way you react, and all this with the environmental circumstances that a female has to face, along with her internal balance that she needs to maintain, tends to trigger to such mental conditions like depression. So yes, it has been seen that not only depression, other disorders, like dysthymia or mood disorders or any other psychiatric disorders are usually on a little higher side whenever there is hormonal fluctuation that takes place in females. So females tend to see more rate of depression that is there.
Right. So the next question that we have is about the homeopathic medicines. It says, what are the homeopathic medicines that will help me to become emotionally strong? I want to overcome my stress. Dr. Neetu, can you please advise us something about it?
Okay, this is a good question. But see, homeopathy, as Dr. Amrita said, we have a thorough, detailed case taking every medicine changes from person to person. We need to do a detailed case taking, and then we come to a particular drug for a particular person. So there is no short medicine that this medicines will work for everybody. But yeah, few commonly used medicines are like argentum nitricum, ignatia, natramur, arsenicum album, aurum metallicum, veratrum album. So yeah, these are the few medicines which can help, but ultimately I would say just see a homeopath, do a detailed case taking, and then start some medicines. Don't Google yourself and don't start medicines as well. Yeah, thank you.
So I would like to ask Dr. Samreen to give us certain insight about the management tips. How do we manage anxiety and how do we get rid of anxiety?
That's a very important question, Krishna. Throughout the topic, we have been hearing about anxiety, depression, but how do we identify? But it's very, very, very important. How do we treat this? How do we help the patient or the people come out of the situation? First and foremost is like when the things are in the initial phase, it can be controlled, it can be treated within the when it's still in the bud phase. I would say like whenever they identify that they are going into some kind of emotional crisis, please speak out, communicate, talk to the people around, whoever you are confident with, who are you comfortable with. So talk, communicate with the people around. If you are not in a frame of mind of not talking across, at least seek some counselor's help who can at least without starting the medications can help you in coming out and managing out the situation in much more better manner. The another factor would be when the things are not beyond that, please don't go ahead with some kind of substance abuse. No need to go ahead with alcohol or with the addiction kind of things are available in the psychologist therapists. We can provide with the same. Secondly is like do not make excess use of caffeine products, okay, tea, coffee, 2 cups is fine but not beyond that. Addictions such as tobacco, nicotine addictions, alcohol addictions, going for drugs, these are not definitely the way to handle any anxiety phase. So avoid going with that kind of substance abuse. Other factors would be try to catch up on sleep. Sleep is the best healer, so at least try to catch up on good quality sleep for 6 to 8 hours. Another insight for identifying anxiety is like people may not voice out about anxiety, but yes, they may just say like I'm having sleep disorders. I'm not able to sleep continuously for more than 2 to 3 hours. That is another key indicator where you need to work on that. Like sleep is the best healer, I would say. The another factor where we can help such cases would be like meditate. Try to meditate, deep breathing exercises, physically being active. Go hit a gym. If hitting gym is a problem or you're not comfortable with, go at least a regular walk, physical activities, 20 minutes a day, at least 4 times a week should be fair enough to begin with. If still none of these things work, then yes, we are there to help you out. Homeopathic science is there to help you out in the initial phase, rather than going with the conventional treatment where there is a lot of drug dependency that comes later. But when the phase is there, when the situation is there in an early phase, and still things a lot can be done. So these are the few measures which we can help in overcoming with the anxiety issues in common female problems.
I believe that people don't think how stressful it is to go through such situations. So sometimes it might be that the person going through this situation is not able to understand what they are going through, what their emotions are and what their body is facing. So the next question has brought this thought in my mind that what are the health issues that can happen if my mental health is not understood by me and not treated at the right time? Dr. Amrita, I would like to get a proper elaborated answer about it from you.
Sure, Kismet. So like you said, there are silent symptoms wherein person does not even realize he has some mental illness. But if it is a mental illness, if it is diagnosed, it will not go on its own. So it has to be addressed. Untreated mental health illness can give rise to a progression of the disease. So from simple anxiety in certain situations, it can be a full-blown case of generalized anxiety, OCDs or mood disorder, bipolar mood swings. This can happen. Second is the psychosomatic aspect, what we've just seen, that the mental illness giving rise to a physical ailment is what can happen. And the third aspect, very importantly, is a social concern, wherein there is social withdrawal of the person who is suffering. Suddenly there is cut off from the society. It affects the schooling, the academics in a child if if the child has anxiety. It affects loss of job if suddenly there is increased mental illness severity untreated. It can lead to disturbed interpersonal relationships, leading to increased rates of divorce or separation or conflicts. It can lead to even abuse, like Dr. Samreen said, that addictions happen, substance abuse happens, even untreated depression can go to an extent of suicide that ends the life. So it is very important to treat, firstly identify mental health and then treat as much as early as possible, because initially when we talk about homeopathy also, initial presentations always give better results. So sooner we treat, better are the results. Rather than waiting for the complications to happen, we can address it initially.
So the next question that we have is from our audience, which says that what are the health issues that can be caused because of the stress, depression or the anxiety that I am facing? So I would like to ask Dr. Prajakta, please enlighten more about the common diseases that women face.
Well, as we've all rightly pointed out, how does the mind affect our body? So other than that, women tend to suffer from a majority of diseases which are more common, especially if we say arthritis, osteoporosis, osteopenia. Especially women in the menopausal age group tend to lose their bone marrow density every year by 3%. That is the reason why, because the bone marrow density goes down, they tend to suffer from severe joint pains or arthritis-like symptoms. Also, as the estrogen level goes down, okay, towards your perimenopause or towards your menopause, estrogen is a protective hormone for females, okay. It is known to increase the high density lipoproteins, which are the good lipoproteins, okay, which are required, and it tends to decrease the level of very low density and low density lipoproteins. So when there is estrogen deficiency, you will see increase in the bad lipids, so the bad lipoproteins that occur, which again tend, as a result of which women tends to suffer from cardiovascular diseases, ischemic heart diseases, hypertensions, atherosclerosis, myocardial infarctions, any normal heart attack, heart-related illnesses for people. Other than that, strokes. Now when we speak of heart-related illnesses, again, the heart and the brain is connected. So then you have stroke or paralysis. You also have skin changes. You have metabolic disorders. Women also tend to suffer Alzheimer's. So we at Life Force offer great solution for all these illnesses. We have a successful number of cases where, with the help of Dr. Rajesh Shah and all these associated doctors, we have treated such cases. So homeopathy has great help to offer in such long-term illnesses where other conventional medicine may or may not have a limited scope. But yes, we do offer solutions on all these illnesses.
Thank you, doctor. So coming forward to the next question, I think it is from a teenager girl, I believe. So because it is the common problem that we are all facing. The girls in 20s are also facing the problems of hair fall these days. So the question says, what are the causes of hair fall and premature graying? Can it be treated with homeopathy?
Yeah, hair fall. First, you need to rule out the causes. What causes your hair fall? If it is a nutritional deficiency or vitamin deficiency, or are you suffering from any autoimmune diseases like lichen planus or psoriasis or any thyroid ailments? Just you need to find out the root cause. What causes hair fall? If it is a nutritional deficiency, we can fix it with some supplements and vitamin medicines. So it will be helpful in your hair fall. But if you are having any underlying autoimmune diseases like psoriasis, lichen planus or thyroid, underactive or hyperthyroidism, so you need to take medicines for the same. You can start homeopathy for that. And then once these autoimmune diseases are taken care of, hair fall can be taken care of. And second is, I think, graying of hair. Graying of hair, maybe genetic or maybe some vitamin deficiency. Nothing much can be done about graying of hair. We can reverse it, yeah, but we can try to delay the process of graying of hair.
Going forward with the next question, which says, are mood swings common after post-delivery in females? Can it be helped with homeopathy? Dr. Samreen, would you like to address this question?
Yeah, Kismat. So I have already addressed this in my previous talk question as well, wherein the post-natal depression, also called as baby blues, is quite common, right? So it happens in majority of the females, up to 60%, but over a period of after 3 months after delivery, this weans off. But if the symptoms remain after 6 months and above, they need to seek help. The best help that they can ever get is like help from their spouse, the new fathers, who can definitely help in their daily routine, and not only in handling the new baby but at the same time new mother as well. And coming back to the homeopathy, yes, of course, we have very good remedies which can handle and stabilizing with the hormonal issues in post-delivery as well.
Okay.
So we do have answers for it.
Thank you, doctor. So I would like to ask all my dear doctors, what message would they like to give to women out there?
Alright, so my only message for all the lovely women out there would be, it's time to prioritize yourself. You've been a loving daughter, a great wife, a caring mom, and a super adorable grandmother. But now is the time to think of yourself. It's okay to have some me time. It's okay to, just lie in the bed doing nothing. And it's just okay to not feel guilty about all of this. So it's okay to be selfish if you want to be healthy. Thank you and happy Women's Day.
I would like to give a message to all lovely females out there, like we are the backbone of not only a family, not only of a professional life, but also for the society. If we remain fit, both healthy, physically as well as mentally, the same thing we can reciprocate with managing out with the society levels as well. So prioritize, as rightly said by Dr. Amrita. So focus on yourself, don't ignore yourself. Whenever help is required, please voice out. And yeah, all happy Women's Day to all my lovely females out there.
Okay, I would like to add a point that women need to take care of women. Okay, so if you are young, take care of your mothers. If you have elder sisters, take care of them. Take care of your grandmothers. Take care of your friends, your office colleagues. And most important, every day morning, just get up and ask yourself, how are you, before asking anyone else. Because if you are happy, then and only then your happiness and health will spread to everyone around you. So take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Happy Women's Day.
Okay, Kismet, I would like to address men rather than women. Giving a message. It would be like, all men out there, just support your women in your life, let it your daughters, your mother, your wife, your sister, anybody, support their dreams, help them to accomplish their dreams. And the insider tip is like, if women is happy in your life is happy. Yeah.
Thank you, doctors. So concluding today's session on a positive note, we as women can accomplish anything, and we are the strongest when we cheer each other on. I would like to thank all of my doctors for giving their precious time, and I would like to address all of our audience that let's come together and fight the mental disorders and the physical illnesses with homeopathy. For more queries, you can visit our websites www.askdrshah.com and www.lifeforce.in. You can also contact us on the given contact numbers. Think of homeopathy and wishing you all a very happy Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.